All right, this is Shui with a more detailed analysis of the Zion 1. Normally, I don't do it this quickly, and normally I don't need to revisit a shoe that I've talked about because sometimes, even though the outsole looks clean, I usually, my intuition, my first wear test, I don't usually have regrets or second thoughts, nor did the shoe change my mind about what I felt about them initially. So I don't do that. Sometimes, when there are certain drastic elements that I need to highlight, I would do it. Uh, it happens, but it's rare. But in this case, this is such an important shoe, I think I needed to do that. And every now and then, there are some morons who say, "Oh, you should really wear those shoes to talk about it." So, yeah, STFU. I do wear them and I do talk about them, and I do talk about them later if I need to make certain corrections about what my first instincts were. Usually my instincts are correct and I don't have any regrets or second thoughts about them. So this is me being unapologetic and being an a-hole. Yeah, so the Zion Williamson, the Zion 1, not Z Code, is a little bit comparable to kd13, and I think a lot of people ask about, should I get the kd13 or the Zion 1, Jordan Zion 1, not the Z Code. There are some distinct differences and similarities between the shoe. First of all, the basic setting is that it's got a full-length strobel and a 4-foot zoom air cleared closer to the outsole. But of course, this is air strobel and this is zoom air. And kd13 is much lower to the ground. It's basically very minimal foam around the zoom strobel. But this one, the Zion 1, it's a little bit more plush in the sense that there's a lot of elements from Jumpman 2020 that's been brought to here. The pivot point, the very narrow, sharp shape of the shoe, the upper that's mesh-like, and it's kind of soft, and it's very breathable, and also these lace loops, and the midsole is super soft and comfortable. I would say it's pretty much the same, if not softer than the 2020 midsole. The Jumpman 2020 just had a basic 4-foot zoom air, and everything else was just foam, but the foam felt wonderful. And this is the foam, and it's got a much improved full-length air strobel. And because of the thickness of the foam underneath the strobel, it feels more substantial than the PG5. The PG5 had a very straightforward kind of feel. Maybe because of the hole they've had in the core of the heel, it had a bit of a more sinking feeling in the heel. So the Zion 1 is better in that it's got a little bit more of a lift and a heel to toe drop. Very minimal, but it has it. So for those who've experienced Achilles heel pain or who've ruptured their Achilles like I have, you will understand the importance of having that substantial amount of cushioning or lift on the heel instead of something that sinks and lets your foot move like that, like you're wearing jump soles, because that'll put a strain on your Achilles heel and it might end up hurting it or rupturing it. So that's important. So in that sense, this is better. More cushioning, more plushness, more shock absorption, more lift compared to the kd13 and the PG5 without feeling too high off the ground, like having a max air like the LeBrons. On the forefoot, the zoom air works in tandem nicely, like the kd13, but of course, what makes the experience better is the softer midsole and the air strobel, which is relatively thicker than zoom strobel. So if you like that flat, responsive, lower to the ground feel, you might want to go with the kd13. But if you're like me, you need that plushness in the heel and you like the overall comfort, then yeah, Zion 1 is the shoe for you. The heel slip, as I mentioned in my first review, it's there, but get something that fits your size. If you upsize a bit too much, you might have that issue being something serious. But if you try to use these loops together, you know, the old runner's lace loop where you put another loop here and then put the other loop in that little ribbon that's formed here, that loop that's formed here, that might actually help tighten the lace further to provide a firmer lockdown. But I think a lot of people might have some sort of a slippage issue. Now, it's not serious, not as bad as a Harden 5, but it is there. you will feel like you might want to lace up a little bit more when you're running around. The tongue issue that I talked about, that I felt it's kind of similar to LeBron 18s. It is pretty thin, but it's safer than LeBron 18 in the sense that I tried tightening my laces real tight, but it's not cutting blood circulations or giving blisters on my foot like what I had with the LeBron 18. So if you experienced the pain with LeBron 18, you will not have that same problem with this. It's thin, but it's thin. It's thick enough, I suppose, in that sense. The fit is another issue. It's a strange shoe that goes. Its length is not long this way, but towards the big toe area, it's a bit long in that direction. So for normal people, you might have some dead space here. It's bending and it's got a space up there. It's more spacious up there. But it is kind of like the Jumpman 2020, but not as narrow as the Jumpman 2020. But you might want to consider whether you need to go up half a size. Just a quick reference, if you wear Kyrie's 1 through 4 true to size, or go down half a size, then you would have no problem going true to size or going down half a size with this one. Same applies to those who wear true to size or half size down for Kobe. Many of the Kobe's, including the Kobe 11. I think Kobe 11 is one of the smallest ones that were out there. So yeah, for me, I do go up half a full size up for shoes like the CP3s, which always has a narrow issue. For CP3s, even if I go up a whole size, there is that nagging sensation pinching my pinky toe area here. So if you had that sensation, you might want to try going up a few sizes, or if you still feel that irritation, probably might want to pass on this shoe. But if you have really narrow foot, you're okay with this. But even if you have a narrow foot, you will have some problem with this flimsy part up here, and there's a bit of a dead space here. So personally, I'm going to poke some extra lace loops to provide the sturdy lockdown here as well. That usually works for me. The dead space is not a deal breaker, but there is a bit of a flimsiness and some space up here. The outrigger is something that I simply gave 5 thumbs up, but here's the problem. The outrigger, the midsole is soft and the outrigger area is a little bit rounded, so it's not going to provide that quick stoppage like a typical outrigger that's very angular with a sharp edge or a 90-degree there. So it's going to roll a bit, and then this will scrunch a little bit to provide some cushion to slow down or prevent you from completely rolling over. But there is that insecurity there because this is soft, it's soft, and this is rounded. So I wish if they made it round and soft, they might have needed to make this part a little bit more substantial to provide that bite. So that's a little bit of a bummer, but it's not a deal breaker. It's certainly got more lateral stability and safety than shoes like the LeBron 15. The traction, however, it's not fantastic. It is dust sensitive. Compared to the kd13s, it bites almost any dusty areas that I've tried, indoors, outdoors, dusty, or the dust is not visible, but it's somehow slippery. So in most conditions, the kd13 is comparable to major traction monsters like Crazy Quick. But this, it feels a lot similar to Zoom Freak 1s. It can be a little bit sensitive to dust, and for those who worry that the translucent part might be a dust magnet, interestingly, this white rubber is a lot more sticky and it's super soft. I can just pinch it and like really, can you see my nail prints there? I could really scrape it off or bite it out if I want. That's how eraser soft it is. I guess they wanted to provide that additional softness here for maybe cushioning or maybe some more grippiness, but only on a clean court. So on dusty courts, yeah, not as bad as the traction deal breakers like some of the Adidas models, but definitely not as wonderful as some of the traction monsters that we've had in recent months, like the kd13s.